It started with a threat, 48 hours. That was all the time they claimed I had. 48 hours to bend, to bow, to recant, to apologize for words that were not born out of malice but out of truth, for a message that came not from arrogance but from pain, memory, and history. The world watched as Andrew Holness, in the comfort of his office and the confidence of his title, declared that I, Ibrahim Traoré, had insulted Jamaica, that I had crossed a line. But what line? The one drawn by those who fear honesty? The one separating polished diplomacy from uncomfortable reality? I listened to that ultimatum not with anger but with clarity, because I have learned that the louder a man shouts for an apology, the more he hides from the mirror. You see, when they said I had 48 hours, I remembered my ancestors who endured 400 years of slavery, exploitation, and humiliation, and I laugh, not out of disrespect, but disbelief. How could a people who once broke chains with bare hands now threaten me with words written on paper? I do not measure truth in hours. I measure it in generations, in the silent prayers of the poor, in the cries of mothers who bury sons because of greed disguised as governance. I do not kneel before ultimatums carved by arrogance. I answer only to the people, the farmers, the workers, the forgotten souls who carry nations on their backs. When I spoke in Kingston, it was not to wound pride but to awaken conscience. I did not stand behind a podium to flatter politicians or charm cameras. I stood as a son of Africa speaking to a daughter of resistance. Jamaica, I did not insult you. I reminded you. I reminded you of your fire, of your struggle, of your spirit that once refused to bow even when chains cut into flesh. But somewhere between the sugarcane fields and the modern skyscrapers, that spirit was buried beneath bureaucracy and corruption. I did not come to humiliate you. I came to resurrect what was once unbreakable within you. The Prime Minister said I disrespected Jamaica, but no, I spoke for Jamaica. I spoke for the mother who wakes before dawn, juggling 2 jobs, her palms calloused from labor, still unable to feed her children because the wealth she helps create is stolen before it reaches her table. I spoke for the young graduate who holds a degree but not a destiny, whose dreams evaporate in the heat of unemployment while the ruling class drinks imported wine at summits discussing progress. I spoke for the teacher whose voice cracks after hours of teaching in overcrowded classrooms, whose dedication is met not with gratitude but with delay, in pay, in respect, in recognition. I spoke for the nurse who stays after hours, who bandages wounds that tell stories of poverty and neglect, while politicians stand before cameras speaking of healthcare reform that never comes. I spoke for the farmer who tills the earth, who waters the land with sweat and hope, but reaps nothing because the market are controlled by men who have never touched soil. These people, these stories, they are not statistics. They are the heartbeat of Jamaica, and their suffering is not an insult to speak about. It is an insult to ignore. I will never apologize for echoing their pain, because truth, no matter how sharp, is the only tool that can cut through lies thick as concrete. Mr. Holness mistook criticism for contempt, but only a guilty conscience fears the sound of truth. A true leader, when faced with truth, reflects. A false one, when faced with truth, retaliates. You see, pride without justice is hollow. Dignity without action is just decoration. A nation's dignity does not live in the speeches of its leaders. It lives in the lives of its people. What good is sovereignty if it only shields the powerful? What good is independence if the people remain enslaved by poverty? You cannot call yourself free while your people beg for bread. Jamaica, I spoke not against you but for you. I spoke as a brother, not a stranger. I spoke as a man who has seen how corruption devours nations, how greed dresses in suits and calls itself leadership, how oppression hides behind flags. When I looked into your eyes, Jamaica, I saw myself. I saw Africa. I saw the same scars, the same struggles, the same silence that I vowed to break. That is why I spoke, and that is why I will not take it back. My message was not crafted for comfort. It was forged in fire. I know that truth burns before it heals, but I would rather set a nation aflame with awareness than let it rot in silence. When I said leadership is not a throne but a burden, I meant it. Leadership is not about crowns of gold. It is about crowns of thorns. It is not about being praised. It is about being willing to be hated for doing what is right. A true leader does not seek comfort. He sacrifices it. He does not chase approval. He earns respect through service. He walks with his people, not above them. But when leaders forget this, when they start seeing power as privilege rather than responsibility, tyranny is born. And tyranny does not announce itself. It hides behind smiling faces, expensive suits, and patriotic speeches. Jamaica, your history is written in rebellion. From the Maroons who carved freedom into mountains and Nanny, the woman who defied empires, to Marcus Garvey, who told the black world to rise again. You are not a nation of cowards. You are a people of courage. You were never meant to kneel before anyone. Not before colonizers, not before corporations, and certainly not before corrupted elites. That was a fire I tried to reignite. I came to remind you of who you are, not to shame you for what you become. But your leaders, they heard my words not as truth but as threat. Because truth threatens only those who profit from lies. They tell you I'm an outsider, but injustice has no borders. The language of truth requires no translation. The pain of the poor sounds the same in every nation. When I spoke, it was not Africa speaking to Jamaica. It was the oppressed speaking to the oppressed, the free reminding the enslaved of their birthright. And for that, they gave me 48 hours. 48 hours to undo centuries of silence? Impossible. 48 hours to apologize for loving black nations enough to tell them the truth? Never. You can give me 48 hours, 48 days, or 48 years. My word will remain, because they were never mine alone. They belong to every mother who has cried in hunger, every father who has worked himself to exhaustion for nothing, every youth who dares to dream beyond the limits corruption has placed on them. They belong to those who have nothing to lose but their fear. And fear, once conquered, becomes the most powerful weapon of all. They call me dangerous, and perhaps they are right. I am dangerous to corruption, to hypocrisy, to the kind of leadership that worships power but forgets people. I am dangerous to those who mistake silence for peace. Because peace without justice is just an illusion, a calm before collapse. They call me radical, and I accept that label. For in a world built on lies, truth itself is radical. Mr. Holness, you say you defend dignity, then defend your people. Defend the child who cannot study because the lights are out. Defend the farmer whose crops rot because markets are rigged. Defend the worker who builds your roads but cannot afford to walk them. Don't defend yourself against words. Defend your people against hunger.